Look at verse 20. Then charged he his disciples that they should tell no man that he was Jesus the Christ.
It's a little curious. We tell our missionaries to tell people, why would Jesus tell his own disciples, don't tell anybody who I am, when this whole conversation was about his identity and just verifying and making sure and secure in their minds who he is. So what's going on here?
It's interesting because he's going to give us an answer to that question in this next section. He has a few more things to fulfill in his ministry before it will be time to perform his infinite atonement and lay down his life. That can't happen before its appointed time. So he's saying, don't tell, not yet. Just hold on. Look at verse 21. From that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples how that he must go unto Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and chief priests and scribes, and be killed and be raised again the third day. So he's basically telling them the full story that's going to come forth here in a few chapters. And so Peter's obvious response, verse 22, then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. I don't know what his exact words were, but it would be something like, are you kidding? Well, then I've got a solution. Don't go to Jerusalem. You can prevent this tragedy from happening. At which point, Jesus responds with a very hard saying.
Because Peter's trying to turn Jesus away from his appointed path. He's trying to turn him aside.
So Jesus turned and said unto Peter, get thee behind me, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of God. Fascinating. Get thee behind me. There have been countless articles written on this statement, on this verse, lots of speeches given. At the end of the day, the reality is the word Satan comes from the Hebrew Satan, which means an adversary, somebody who's trying to prevent you from going the direction you want to go. If you look in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, the word Satan, this exact idea, shows up in the story of Balaam and Balak. Remember Balaam and the talking donkey? Well, the angel shows up in the way to stop the donkey from going any further along that way. And in Numbers chapter 22, verse 22, tells you that the angel is a Satan. He is somebody who's preventing Balaam and that donkey from going where they wanted to go.
And he's turning them onto another path. He's an adversary. The word verse literally means to turn. When people used to read verses, they would read this way and then back. Now, we actually just have it from left to right over and over. But an adversary is somebody who turns you out of the way. So just technically, that's what happens. Anytime somebody turns you out of the way, it's an adversary. But we often see it as a very extremely negative thing, and only then often call one person Satan. So
yeah, we've now used that word to narrowly be defined as the chief devil down in hell, Lucifer, from the beginning. But it has a much wider meaning to the Hebrew people. And in antiquity, you can picture him saying to Peter, get thee behind me. You're being an adversary. You're trying to prevent me from going where I need to go. Now, as one little add-on to this concept, get thee behind me when spoken to a disciple is another more command form way of saying, follow me, Peter. Don't try to get in front of me. Don't try to tell me what to do or what not to do. I know what my mission is. I know what I have to do. Get behind me. And the implication here is come, follow me. Do the things which you've seen me do. Don't try to stop me. One of the tricks in life, especially in leadership and in parenting, is to learn how to get directions from heaven and from those whose right and keys and authority it is to give us vision and to give us direction and to take that direction and figure out how to implement it rather than trying to turn it into a democracy and figure out what everybody thinks is best. And then let's do that. At the end of the day, nobody's going to end up happy. And I love this example very clearly stated by Jesus. He knows who he is. He knows what he needs to do. And he's inviting everybody else to get behind him and basically follow him and watch and observe. I'll show you what needs to happen. And then, verse 24, he says, Then said Jesus unto his disciples, if any man will come after me, if you'll follow me, let him deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. And I love the Joseph Smith translation add-on here when he says, and now for a man to take up his cross is to deny himself all ungodliness and every worldly lust and keep my commandments. This is coming from Jesus, who he just got through telling his apostles, when I go to Jerusalem next, I'm going to be turned over to the Romans. I'm going to be slain. I'm going to be laid in a grave and I'm going to raise again. I'm going to go down and suffer and die. He is the ultimate example of what it means to take up one's cross, which is, he's not saying, ooh, I can't wait to go to Jerusalem. This is going to be a thrill for me. There's nothing fun about that experience that's awaiting him. But he takes up his cross and he's willing to do what needs to be done, even though it's not going to be pleasurable in any way, shape, or form. So he finishes this concept in verse 25 and 6 when he says, for whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever will lose his life for my sake shall find it. Can you picture that, the power of that statement in that context? If your whole mission in life is to try to save your own life, symbolically or literally, and it's all you're trying to do, he's saying, then what does it profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his own soul? Or what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? What would you be willing to pay to redeem your soul? And here's Jesus saying, you don't have to pay. Just give your life to me, and my life that I gave for you will be yours free for the taking.